Hello and welcome back to Fireside and Fairytale. This is Flosstube number 15 and it is a lovely sunny spring morning here. It is Tuesday the 25th of March 2025, and for me it's certainly been a very busy and productive month and a very busy week that I've been stitching, knitting, and of course looking and studying up and actually making samplers. And I have been using my book of days by Needlework Press. It's still such a help to me, and of course it will be a lovely record to keep for looking back on the months as we go through the year. So I've been filling mine out. I'm not using stickers. I know that Laura and Brenda and the Serial Starter, certainly Brenda and Laura, have a wonderful array of stickers. But there is a limit to time and finance, and so it's just at present plain writing, though I might add some of my own paintings and illustrations at some point. As some of you will know, I'm also a watercolorist, so I might get round to that, but it's choosing the priorities, isn't it? There's only so many hours in the day, and the wise choice produces the good work at the end of the day, and also work that is completed. That's really very important for me. Maybe not for everyone, but for me, if I start something, then I really want to see that it is going to be completed. So a new start, that wasn't actually in my original plans for the month, but this particular design, sampler design, kept jumping out at me. It has done for a while, and so I did actually start on My Heart Can Rest. It's a beautiful design, Blackbird Designs. This is the original. And the colours have faded to very gentle pastel tangerine type of colours, and then with this really acid green in the centre leaf there. And Blackbird Designs have translated that into quite strong pinks. So I decided I was going to use silks for this, and some of my own choices, in that I have a certain stock of silks and I did want to use them. The original calls for Heartland by Picture This Plus, 36 count, and a variety of classic colour works and weeks down works with a DMC conversion. But as I say, I wanted to go with silk. Now, one of the reasons that I could start on this was because lovely 123 Stitch, who send from America and are brilliant. They don't cost very much to send to the UK, and they're really fast, and they have a really comprehensive website that gives you the information just at your fingertips. They post extremely quickly, and I highly recommend them, I have to say. This year I've been really pleased with that company. So they sent me some Heartland, and that was the reason that I could begin on the sampler itself. This is quite a pinkish linen. It's got a beautiful soft pink tone going through it, I had trouble obtaining Heartland because there are so many of the Blackbird designs at the moment that are calling for Heartland. And so it's Picture This Plus. Did I mention that? Yes, I did. And so I was scrounging around trying to find, and 123 Stitch came up with the only one in stock, which was 40 count. So I'm adaptable, and I really wanted to go with the actual colour of the fabric this time, and just see what Heartland was going to be like. And there's a reason for that, which I will tell you a little later in the programme. So here we are, and I've made a small start on My Heart Will Rest, or Heart Can Rest, and just enjoyed going straight into the two flower buds there, rose buds in the centre. One of the reasons that I didn't go with the border initially is because I've been doing rather a lot of borders recently and wanted a break from borders, and actually wanted a break from alphabets and go straight to motifs. The other reason is because I'm still waiting for a couple of the silk colours that I've chosen to come in the post. They're actually coming from West End Embroidery in England. So here at the moment are my choice of threads. Some of them, I have an MPI silk here, which is the darker pink, which I must have left upstairs, but this gives you an idea of what I've chosen so far. That is Elizabethan Green by Gloriana. These are mostly Gloriana. As I say, I have got a deeper MPI silk. I think it's 731 that I'm using as well. The one shade here that I feel may not work is this, which is Sagebrush. And that is, of course, exactly why I won't be using it, because it's actually, oh no, it's Classic Colourworks, it is silk. Sagebrush, not sure about that colour, but it absolutely may work. It may work. We'll just wait and see. It's pretty close. So what do I have here? The MPI 731, which is a very dull pink. Gloriana Desert Rose. I love Gloriana Desert Rose. Just love that colour. Gloriana Baby Corn. Wouldn't be for everything. It's very bright, but it's lifting the whole sampler and into something that is very vibrant. As I say, I have Sagebrush. That's Classic Colourworks Belle Soie. It's quite a minty green, so we'll just see. Gloriana Italian Gold, an extremely useful colour. Very, very useful colour. And then, because I had it, well, we'll do the Gloriana is Elizabethan Green. Again, an extremely useful colour, a very particular colour of green. I went to Sudeley Castle, where Elizabeth I spent her her early teen years, actually. Sudeley Castle, Suddley, in England, and oh, it's just so full of atmosphere, and you can see her in the garden. You really can. She was about 13, 14-year-old at this time. And so Elizabethan Green, they were all stitching, all the ladies were stitching in those days, and I don't know whether this green was the green that would have been found on their silk embroidery. Probably it was. It's just a beautiful green. And then, because I have it anyway, lovely, lovely, lovely Karen water lilies, and this is Rose Blush, which of course is the variegated, so I'll be able to work that in some way or other. So here we have a silk sampler on the linen, silk on linen, for My Heart Can Rest. That's my new start. Now, in the post yesterday, the two new Blackbird designs, the Sweet Birds Sing, and this is a really vibrant cross stitch, very jolly colours, and what can I say about it? I don't want to tell you too much about it. It does say it's 3 projects in it, and it certainly is vibrant and very bird orientated. I think we could say that it really is bird orientated, this one. And this is the reason that I did start with My Heart Can Rest, because these call for Heartland. They're calling for they are calling for 36 count Heartland by Picture This Plus, and so I will be finishing, or certainly I will be dividing the Heartland fabric that I have 40 count and using 40 count for this, unless more Heartland turns up in some retail outlet, in which case I'll possibly go with a 36 count. I might even slightly adapt the pattern, maybe add a little bit more of a border, because there is a difference size-wise between 40 count will produce a smaller item. So we'll see. But what I did manage to get was the called for thread. I had some of the colours already, but I certainly didn't have these colours, and I went for them just now with the Heartland because Brenda and the serial starter Laura said, do purchase Blackbird as soon as they come out, but also get the threads. So I think there's heirloom gold, which certainly Blackbird uses a great deal of heirloom gold, but there is Classic Colourworks Tennessee red clay, which is a new one to me, a vibrant pink. Bee's Knees Dove by Weeks Dye Works, more red clay, camouflage. But this is the one I was really looking forward to. This is called Licorice Red. Look at that. That's really quite something, isn't it? So you can see that the result will be vibrant using these colours of threads, and that's camouflage. So Licorice Red and Tennessee red clay, and then the greens. So very much a red and green sampler. Now I was reading up. I'm trying not to get too involved with history at the minute, though I think that will come in time. There have been things in my life. I've had my daughter say, "Oh, Mummy, you've had 9 lives." I've had so many different lives. I've been having a wonderful life, still do, but aspects of my life have certainly been about stitching, learning how to sew, and I will at some point or other I'll start sharing not only my personal history, but of course how it pertains in context to not only the British Isles, but further afield actually. But I don't want to bore you at the minute with all of that. However, I will say that on my reading, as I'm reading up background, in that I don't want to be giving you wrong information about history. I'm very careful about that. But one of the things, I'll get to the point, one of the things I discovered just in my reading in the last week was that in Scotland, the women wore red and green. And the writer of the research said they didn't know why. If you know why, let me know in the comments. That would be very interesting to know. But traditionally, women in Scotland wore red and green. What I will tell you that I do know is that fairies wear red and green. It's a fairy colour, and if you think about it, they're depicted, elves and this sort of thing, in red and green. So fascinating, starting to dig back into history and then back into mythology and how we're still influenced by that. So red and green, my house here in Scotland is red and green or pink and green, and you can see my curtains and my chenille table covering here, they're green. My carpets are green, and then I do have red as well, and it's a very satisfying colour combination to be living with. So there we are. Now, mustn't talk too long. So that's your Blackbird Designs new release, and the other one is Gifts of the Season, and a beautiful sampler, the original there, and it's stitched on doubloon, and it's actually asking for fewer threads. Not the bright ones, the sanguine baked apple ones that we've known from before with Blackbird Designs. It's 36 count doubloon by Picture This Plus is what it actually calls for. Though I may not in the end go with that myself. I might go for a rather darker one and a rather more gingery one for that one. But this is not going to be started in the immediate. Now, what have I finished? Well, I finished my blue alphabet. And you can see it's quite straightforward, and it's got this off-kilter design at the bottom. It's not your traditional uniform repeat of a pattern at all in the lower area there. And it's more inspired by the work, needlework in the UK in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and even into 50s, where they quite liked designs that were not balanced. This is balanced, but not uniform. So very pleased with that one there. And a blue alphabet I stitched on R&R Winter Moon, and it's 32 count. It was more or less, it was inspired by one that Brenda Holzman is stitching at the moment. I saw her lovely one on Instagram, and this idea of just using a thread a day, just stitching one thread a day. This is by Weeks Dye Works Freedom, is that right? Never get that one right, do I? Anyway, I think it's that one. I'll just check. And so there we are. That's the thread a day, and that's been very relaxing. I'm just going to check with my notebook here if it was Weeks Dye Works. No, simply Shake a Gentle Art. Freedom. Lovely blue. Lovely blue colour. Okay, so next one up. Some of you will have been waiting for this. This is one that I'm alternating with Come Into My Garden by Blackbird Designs, which I will start from today and do for a week. This is mostly Weeks Dye Works and Classic Colour Works. You can see I use sushi boxes. I use them a great deal for my threads. And this is Merrily Merrily, We Welcome the Spring, which is what we're doing at the moment. I love this because the colours remind me of the sampler that I grew up with, and rightly or wrongly, I've now got the photographs from my daughter of that, and eventually I will be showing you, but it's silk on silk, and it is very faded, but now I've seen the photographs again. This is not really that similar, but it was a jolly good reason to start this one. I am loving it. I have to say, Come Into My Garden is my preference, but I think that it's good to ring the changes, and I have to do this. There we are. To ring the changes and not get too bogged down, though I know that some people just like to pick up one thing and stitch and stitch and stitch until you're finished. I'm finding I'm not doing that quite so much. So what did I do? Well, I had done, as you probably remember, I had made myself work around the entire border. So I have the basis of the border all completed, and then this week I have been I decided just to go for the bottom left corner there, and do a bit of stitching on that. And it's not coming up very clearly, I have to say, because it's on oaken, and oaken is actually a very, very strong background. Let me see if I can do that. So I've done some more of the border, and then I've been working up, done the border, and then I've been working up to the urn here. Just a little bit done. This is stitched, as I say, on oaken, and merrily, here we are, 36 count by Picture This Plus. Recommended threads. Not an enormous amount done on this, and you'll see later why that's the case. Not a huge amount done, but a bit. I have done a bit. And this will be laid aside for a week now, and then it'll be picked up again the following week, so I'm not going to lose sight of it. So here we are with my Easter stitch, and again, very, very little done on this. This is for Easter, so I've been slightly slower on this because Easter is so late this year. It's right, I think it's 20th of April is Easter Monday. So a few weeks, so I sort of held back a little bit on this one, but I did get a little bit more of the wording done on the bottom there. And what I'm going to do here is, I wanted to get another couple of flowers done, but I didn't manage that. But this will be coming up on my list of priorities for the week, and I aim to have more flowers, or just more of it done. Now again, Brenda was saying she couldn't stand 1/1 on 40 count. This is 40 count, and it's a lovely, it's R&R reproduction antique cotton, and it's actually a lovely yellowish. It's a beautiful fabric. I'm really loving stitching on this. It's definitely yellowish, which is what I wanted because that's a traditional Easter colour. And she was saying, oh, I really can't be bothered with 1/1 to actually do the crosses. I just do 10th stitch. So if I do put this up finally, if I get the pattern up, put it on Etsy, I would suggest, yes, just do 10th stitch on it, which is just, if you don't know, it's just the one leg of the cross, not both legs, which would make the wording a great deal easier than trying to stitch crosses on 40 count, which is quite a feat. Not impossible, I am managing it, but 10th stitch would make it much more quick as a stitch. So that's my Easter one. Now, the reason that I have done less stitching, certainly on Merrily Merrily We Welcome the Spring, than I was planning, because having said I would not make what you call project bags, that it would take up far too much time. I had stitched and absolutely loved doing the first flower of the border of Anne Grant, which is a pattern that's available through Shakespeare's Peddler, and this is silks, and the silks are just so wonderful. I thought, no, I really don't want to be using I don't really want to be using a plastic bag or a basket, or just leaving them around somewhere. I want to make a proper bag for Anne Grant and for the silks that go with her. That's partly because Anne Grant is in single sheets of A4 that have been printed off. It's not a booklet like you would have with Blackbird Designs, for example. So I wanted to keep the whole thing neatly, and so I went to my rather large library of stitching, sewing, knitting, etc. books, and pulled out this book. This is Through the Window and Beyond, New Designs for Cathedral Window by Lynn Edwards, and the publisher is the Patchwork Place. Now, I have a wonderful outlet just 2 minutes walk along the road from me, which has shelves of old books that they're selling off for not a great deal, and this was a find. Quite a while ago, and if you're anything like me, if you see something, you know you're not going to use it just now, but you might in the future. You get hold of it, put it in your shelf, and then lo and behold, one day when you're thinking about making a work bag for Anne Grant and the silks, I have Cathedral Window here ready. And now I have made patchwork quilts before. I was into patchwork decades ago when it was still coming back into fashion, and in fact American quilts were, I think, just taking off for the first time in England. That's possibly because the American Museum at Bath, Claverton at Bath, has a wonderful collection of American quilts, and it was possibly because of them that American quilting started to come into fashion. Now I think it was 1990. Thinking about that, it was about that time, and I made a quilt for each of my daughters in log cabin. I then went into patchwork for my sister and for my mother, and when my mother lay dying, she sadly died of cancer, I had stitched a pillow for her that she lay back on, and that was of the fan. Remember doing that. This is years ago, and this was in the very early 1990s. And then my sister, who was quite frail, I made quite a number of quilts for her. I made Irish chain for her, and I also did a cathedral window for her at that time. So I was coming, and this is the older you become, the more you realize that our lives maybe go round in circles, or they may be spiral, but the Irish saying, what goes around comes around, is very, very true, certainly in my life, and I'm sure for many of you. So I had to brush up. I had to brush up on how to do it. Look, it's just amazing, isn't it, what can be done with this design. And if you've not come across Cathedral Window, I highly recommend. She does show you how to make them by machine. However, I actually, there's a variation there, just staggeringly wonderful. But I actually prefer to hand sew. So here we are. There's one there. So I just sat and stitched this. I started on Tuesday after I'd done the last film, and I finished on Sunday, and it did take longer than I hadn't thought about how long it would take. I just wanted to do it. Another thing about going back to my history and my personal education is that, without getting too much into it, is that I had the sort of education that is probably not very common now at all, and that is I had a girls' education. I went to girls' schools. My father moved around a great deal in his career, and so I attended a number of schools, more than most, I have to say, which was an education in itself because the schools were very different, but they were girls' schools. And girls' schools in those days, I think, were transitioning from a girl should be at home, should learn domestic, should be a support to her husband, and should learn the domestic arts, is what they were called. So cooking and sewing. Well, I was never really taught cooking at school, but what I was taught at all of the schools was sewing. And as I say, I will go into this in more detail later. And hand sewing, and I was taught crochet, I was taught knitting, and I certainly at two of the schools I was at, it was still very much in the tradition of the ladies' schools, or daughters of gentlemen who would go to what would be called a dame school, often begun in somebody's sitting room, and a small group that were then trained up, as I say, in the domestic side of things. But as I went through about the ages of 11 up into my early teens, the education system became more dictated by the government at that time, and the big push was for girls to learn the sciences, and the handwork, handcraft, certainly sewing for the home was deeply frowned on. It was looked on as old-fashioned and totally irrelevant, and very much dismissed. It was dismissed, actually. And so what happened in the sewing classes at the girls' schools I was going to was that they became scientific, and my sewing teachers were dragons, and we had to learn the sewing machine, and it was machine orientated, and it was really nothing to do with things from the heart at all. It was to do with making useful products. Not that there's anything wrong with useful products, but it became much more scientific. And actually my friend at the time and I rebelled against all of that, and but that's another story. We were stitching in our own way. One of the first things that you learned with the domestic arts, and this is going back to the earlier sort of history, was a shoe bag. And I'm sure there are some of you who will be my generation and a bit older who will be remembering that's what we started with. We started with a shoe bag. You then went on to an apron, and it was graded up. So I thought I would make the equivalent of a shoe bag, but it's actually a work bag. And on the front is the Cathedral Window patchwork that I've made. And with a shoe bag, you always had a pocket in the front, and this is actually a pocket. And the pocket is holding the Anne Grant silks to keep them neat. And then within the shoe bag itself, the shoe bag top would be made in a different way, but I wanted a more Edwardian look and an easier. I didn't want a pull tie, which is what they had. And so in here I have the pattern and the fabric, which, as you can see, is that's the border. Oops, that's the border. The one rose or flower of the border. there we are, the Anne Grant shoe bag. And I bought the green on Amazon. It came the next day. Thank you, Amazon. Olive green, beautiful cotton. And if Amazon hadn't been so obliging to have stocked it, and the lovely delivery guy hadn't turned up the next day, then this would not be finished. I wouldn't be able to show you it. So thank you, Amazon. And there we are, all hand stitched, but it did take, it was a labour of love. Now, I did, however, keep to my schedule my Stacy Nash Rose Cottage Pinkeep. This was a labour of love. I have to say, I am not enjoying the full coverage. I will be so happy when it's finished, but there's a bit of discipline here. I wanted to have the next bird done on the blue, and I managed it, and I've even done half of the flower. The aim is to have, and of course it looks lovely, so I mean it really is worth the work. It's just wasn't quite my scene. And the aim is to have the final bird, dove, done with the blue and that little flower there to the end, by the end of March. And I will actually manage that unless something, I don't know, unless the roof falls down or something. And there we are. That's that. It's on Confederate Grey, Weeks Dye Works. Lovely, again, a lovely fabric. This is 32 count, so I shouldn't really be complaining because it's a loose weave. The actual stitching is very easy. It's not tight at all. And as I say, the final product's so delightful. Isn't that lovely? I'm just using DMC. I say just. Why do we say just about DMC? DMC is wonderful. DMC, what would we do without DMC? Have my little label, Rose Cottage Pinkeep, my sushi books, and there's my threads. There are my threads. Finally, if you remember, I had made the little DPN double pointed needle holders for my socks. I'm making them, the socks, at the same time so that I will finish at the same time, and you can see they are getting longer. This knitting is done first thing in the morning when I'm waking up, and last thing at night when I've got really dopey. So I'm not really thinking too much. The thread or the yarn is West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply, just in a lovely, it's Marshmallow 011 if you're interested. I wound that one, and then that's from the original ball, all kept neatly in my basket. And the actual pattern is from this lovely book, Around the World in Knitted Socks, 26 Inspired Designs by Stephanie van der Linden. I love this book. I absolutely love this book. It's brilliant, easy to follow, beautifully laid out, lovely pictures. That's the one I'm doing, Brussels lace. I have knitted these before. This isn't my first go at these, and here is actually, she's made them longer, so I think it does say to repeat the pattern twice, but I think she must have repeated it 3 times. They are longer in the photograph there. Just a lovely book. It's Interweave Press, and hopefully it's still available. Hopefully the Cathedral Window book is also still available for you. Let me see when it was published. Uh, 1995. Well, you may still be able to get this. I've no idea, but I will tell you on YouTube there are demonstrations of Cathedral Window, and there will certainly be many other books telling you how to make this lovely patchwork variation. So there we are again, and I hope you've been inspired. I have been chatting on a little bit more than usual. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you have and you're a new subscriber, thank you very much, and we'll just have to do this again because it keeps and there we are. And if you are new to me and you've just subscribed, then thank you very much, and I hope you'll come again. And for those of you who have been here for very much longer, I hope that this is all adding to your inspiration and your ideas for maybe starting new things, and certainly new skills and techniques, because I don't just stick to cross stitch, as you will see. And I want to just mention, as I say, Brenda and the Serial Starter, Narissa in New Zealand, Nicole of Nicole's Needleworks, Kindred Stitcher, and Carol Saltbox Stitcher, I would say are my top for viewing. But there are certainly others, and I will be mentioning others as we go on through the weeks. So have a wonderful week of stitching and enjoying all of the creative things we can do with our hands. And see you again soon. Bye bye.